Hello and welcome to Sarufi Classes. So now we are going to read the chapter number 3 of class 6 NCERT Social and Political Sciences. So it is third chapter, that is what is government. So you must have heard the word government mentioned several times. In this chapter you will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. What do governments do? How do they decide what to do? What is the difference between different types of governments such as monarchies and democracies, and read more and find out. Okay, so here you will see some cutouts. So let's read them one by one. Government sought to protect right of unorganized workers. Detailed plan to tackle foods soon, say government. Government fixes price of onions, says no shortage in market. Supreme Court can have 5 more judges. Government for revamping coal and power sector. Over 15,000 villages declared scarcity hit by government. So look at the newspaper headlines above and list the different kinds of activities that the government is reported to be doing in these newspaper headlines. One, 2, 3, 4. Isn't this a wide range of activities? What do you think government is? Discuss in the class. So every country needs a government to make decisions and get the things done. So this can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. The government also takes action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. It does other important things such as running postal and the railway services. The government also has the job of protecting the boundaries of the country and maintaining the peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. When there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake, it is the government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. If there is a dispute or if someone has committed a crime, you find people in the court. Courts are also part of the government. Perhaps you are wondering how governments manage to do all these and why it is necessary for them to do so. When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. So here you will see some of the images, some of the examples of the institutions that are part of the government: the Supreme Court, the Indian Railways, and the Bharat Petroleum. Okay, so can you list 3 things that the government does which have not been mentioned? Some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there is a need to control resources and protect the territory of the country so people can feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions, and implementing these among all the people living in their territory. So, what are the levels of government? Now that you know that the government is responsible for so many different things, can you think of how it manages to do all this? The government works at different levels: at the local level, at the level of the state, and at the national level. The local levels mean in your village, town, or locality. The state levels would mean that which covers an entire state like Haryana or Assam, and the national levels relates to the entire country. Later in this book you will read about how local level government functions, and when you go into the next few classes you will learn about how governments function at the states and the central level. So here you will see the national level. So here you will see the map of the India, and here is its capital Delhi. Then when it comes to the state levels, here you will see the map of India and different states are there. So and when you see about the district level, so you will see that there are so many districts in so many states. So here you will see that image. So there is an exercise. Look at the statements in the column on the left. Can you identify which level they belong to? Please tick marks against the level you considered most appropriate. Okay, so let's read them one by one. The decision of the Indian government to maintain peaceful relations with Russia. What do you think? What it could be? It could be local, state, or central. Obviously, it could be a central. Then the decision of the West Bengal government on whether to have board exam in class 8 for all the government schools. This could be of what level? This could be of local level. Yes, right. Then the introduction of two new trains connections between Jammu and Bhubaneswar. Obviously, it could be of the state level. Then the decision to locate a common well in particular area of village. Obviously, local. Then decision to construct a big children park in Patna. Obviously, uh, local level. Then the decision of Haryana government to provide free electricity for all the farmers. This is also again the local level. Then introduction of the new 1,000 rupee notes. It comes up to central level. Okay. So next, laws and the government. So the government makes laws and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. So this is the only way governments can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly, it has the power to enforce its decisions. For example, there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license, and any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined large sum of money. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use. Discuss think of the examples of another law. Why do you think it is important that people abide by this law? In addition to any actions that governments can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. The court can then give orders about what should be done. So, what are the different types of governments? Let's read them. Who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in a country. In a democracy, it is the people who give the government this power, and they do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its action and defend its decision to the people. Another form of government is monarchy. The monarch, king, or queen has the power to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in the democracy, kings and the queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. So, discuss first. Do you think it is important for people to be involved in decisions that affects them? Give two reasons for your answers. Second, which type of government would you prefer to have in the place you live in and why? Third, which of the statement below is correct and correct those statements, those sentences that you think need correction. So first, in a monarchy, the country's citizens are allowed to elect whomever they want. This is incorrect. They are not allowed to. Then B, in a democracy, a king has absolute powers to rule the country. No, no, no. This is also not correct because it is a democracy, so there is no role of king here. Democracy, people rule themselves, and the representatives of the people who elected them has the powers. Then third is, in a monarchy, people can raise questions about the decisions and the monarch takes. No, this is not correct. This is also incorrect. So people can't raise the questions about the decisions monarch takes. Third is democratic government. So India is a democracy, and this achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You now know that the main feature of the democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So, in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as the representative democracies. In representative democracies, people do not participate directly but instead choose their representatives through an election process. These representatives meet and makes decisions for the entire population. So these days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchisee. So this means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. Remember, universal adult franchisee means all adults in the country are allowed to vote. But it was not ways like this. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? So, in their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. So, this means that women and the poor and the propertyless and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. So the country was governed by the rules and the regulation that these few men made. So in India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as Universal Adult Franchisee. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should get the vote, but a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who honestly works by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man. So here you will see this photograph voting in a rural area. A mark is put on the finger to make sure that a person casts only one vote. Okay, so let's read what's given here. Votes for women. So nowhere in the world have governments willingly shared power. All over Europe and USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in governments. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War, and this movement is called the women's suffrage movement, as the term suffrage usually means right to vote. During the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to work, and that was earlier considered men's work. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So, women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions, and the suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railing in public places. Many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strikes, and they had to be fed by force. American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in UK got to vote on the same term as men some years later in the 1928. So with this we have finished with the chapter 3 of social and political life, class 6 NCERT. So here are some of the questions. So let's read those questions and try to answer them. And thank you so much for listening. Keep studying and we will meet in the next chapters. Thank you.